Oh, that's not gonna work. Let's just do that. There we go. Okay, hang on a second. Hey, News Nebraska, Human Being, Country Boy News. Who else do we have there? I see my brothers out there. Amber, hello everybody. So what I thought I'd do, someone had made a suggestion that I do like an Ask Anything, and the reason, because there's so much, like military activism, law school, whatever. So I thought I'd kind of do one because it's spring break. I've got a week off of law school. I'm taking 2 days of that and doing absolutely nothing to relax, kind of relax a little bit, and then I'm gonna try and get ahead on my law school readings. But I wanted to give a quick Olmos Park update first, and then for those of you who don't care anything about me, because I'm nothing special, which should be most of you, kind of do an Ask Me Anything. So here's the deal. For the last 2 years, as you remember, March 27th is the 2-year mark for when Olmos Park assaulted me and gave me these constant migraines that I have. So, and if you do have a question, I'll go ahead and just talk about it. And gave me the migraines that I continuously deal with. We have tried in good faith to work with Olmos Park, and you're not going to get a whole lot of specific updates from me. But what I can tell you is that they have refused to negotiate or try to settle in good faith. To be honest with you, I don't think that the attorney for the city's actually really done his homework on this case, because the egregiousness of what happened and what continues to happen is going to be a detriment. So anyway, they started out with a really crappy offer. Almost, I mean, it would have been less offensive for the city to say, no, we're not giving you a dime, than it was for what they offered me and Jim as a settlement. And so we kind of came back with an equally offensive, though more favorable to us, counter offer. They came up a little bit, but they're refusing to negotiate in good faith. So we will be filing our lawsuit here pretty soon, and there will be an announcement on that with the details and the specifics, because the good thing about the lawsuit, okay, it's not that I wanted to avoid a lawsuit, although obviously there's a lot more cost involved, but that just means that the city's going to lose more in a lawsuit. The good news is that everything is going to be public now, and all the evidence that we have, that Jim and I have, from the arrest, and when I say I mean our attorney, but also all the phone calls that we've made, and all that stuff from Olmos Park, is going to be public. And what everyone has seen from Olmos Park, by way of the videos of what happened that day, is a drop in the bucket compared to everything that they've done prior to, during, and after that event. And I'm not even including what they did to Jack. But what they did to Jack is just proof they haven't learned their lesson at all. So once we've officially filed, I will do a video, and or my attorney will do a video, and we will get that out there and be able to talk about exactly what we're suing for. We brought on a national attorney that does civil rights stuff. I can't give out any details. I know this is kind of a crappy video because I'm not giving you details, but I am just letting you guys know we didn't give up. What we've been trying to do the last 2 years is we've been trying to force Olmos Park to just do the right thing. Okay, that's all they had to do, is just do the right thing. And over the last 2 years, they haven't. The chief is still in charge. All the officers still work there. They're still doing the same crap, and they think they can get away with it. And the only way they're going to be held accountable is right now in the court system. That's the only way we're going to get justice at this point. So there's that. There is David Ahmad, who's the vice president of Open Carry Texas, is going to have a rally next week on the, is it the 7th, I think? Go look at the Open Carry. Oh, that's what I was looking up when I started this video. I was going to get you the specifics. Let's see. Do you think a dump truck with a turret gun is legal? Yeah, I think so. As long as it's not fully automatic turret gun, I guess, or if you have a license for it. Hang on, I'm gonna pull this up for you guys so that I have the details, but you can go to the Open Carry Texas Facebook page for the details. Yes, it's an Ask Me Anything. Uh-oh. I just gave Greg carte blanche. Now he's gonna ask me anything. All right, let's see. Events. Where's my events at? Hey, I don't know if you're sexy, Greg, or proud of your freedom, but that beard is sexy. That's why I'm working on it. Once I get a little longer, maybe I'll like dye it or something, and so it's obvious. Oh, March 7th at 2 p.m. Olmos Park, Texas. And let me see what the specific details are here. Tacos or tamales? Oh man, that is hard. Oh my gosh, that really is a hard question. Tacos or tamales? Oh my goodness, because I love them both. Okay, what kind of tamales? What kind of tamales? That's, if you say a specific kind of tamales, I might have an answer for you, but it depends. That's lawyer speak, by the way. But I'll take both, tacos and tamales. Pork? No. Okay, so I'm gonna have to go with tacos. Now, if you had said chicken, you'd have had me. You'd have really had me. Pork? I mean, still tacos, and I mean, I'll eat any tamale. But you make a chicken tamale, it's over. Tacos lose, unfortunately. Olmos Park. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. It's 1 to 4. That's right. I'm in a different time zone. So, yes, 1 to 4 Texas time. Thank you. So, Proud of Your Freedom is there, and can answer any more specific questions. There is I did get an email that I emailed to you, by the way, asking about parking or specifics about like where people should go. Cream cheese jalapeno tamale. Oh, okay. You got me there, businessman. That would take me over the edge as well. Yeah. All right. When you become an attorney, what will you do with your license? All right. So, what will I do as an attorney? So it's funny. We had a speaker for Black History Month, and she talked about the hidden figures in our life and all that, and I guess in Virginia, they have a requirement that all attorneys, if you're a barred attorney, have to do it's either 2 or 3%. I think it's 2%, but 2% of their practice has to be pro bono, or 2% of their time. I don't know if it's like, I don't know if you get sanctioned if you don't, but I don't know if it's a recommendation or requirement in Virginia. I'm not going to practice in Virginia, so it doesn't matter. but she was saying that 2%, the Virginia Bar Association requires 2% pro bono work. I plan to do about 80% pro bono work. I am here at law school because I believe that there is a problem with access to justice. I think that government gets away with what government gets away with because they know how expensive attorneys are. And in order for someone to justify paying an attorney, the violation of their rights has to be egregious to justify that expense. Well, I think that's wrong, because what I think happens is cops have this risk-benefit analysis that they do. And I think what they do is they determine, okay, if I violate this person's rights this much, I can't be sued because it's he's not going to sue me for something stupid like just detaining him for ID or whatever. Now, if I beat him or I use excessive force, yeah, he might sue me. So I think what a lot of cops do is they kind of know where that fine line is that people are likely not to sue them. Not me. I've actually already bought my website. Obviously, it's not going to be up there. I've bought my website already for my law firm. It's just going to be me, and it's isuebadcops.com. If somebody's rights are violated, I will fight for them. Now, obviously, I'm not a rich man by any stretch of the imagination, and I can't just go around fighting people's cases for free. But what I am going to do, and what I am willing to do, is as long as my expenses are covered, so the filing fees, if I have to drive somewhere, fuel, whatever, then as long as those fees are covered, I'm not going to be charging hourly rates for most of my practice, as long as it's the civil rights thing. And I'm going to be kind of judicious about that, because I don't want people taking advantage of that and going out and just being complete dicks. Now, keep in mind, it's okay. There's nothing illegal about that. But if the only reason you're going out there is to get yourself arrested, because you know that, oh, CJ will protect me, I'm not going to be someone that people can use as a crutch. But if people's rights are truly violated, then that's what I plan to do. And then on a lot of these cases, I'll just do on a contingency. So I'll work for free unless there's a reward, and then I'll get a little bit of the reward. All right. I did see another question up here. Your true opinion on First Amendment, guys. All right. Here's my true opinion on First Amendment, guys. First of all, I'm glad they're doing what they're doing, and I think there's a reason for that. I believe that the reason First Amendment activists exist is because government has gotten out of control, and too many people have been arrested for innocent type stuff. And generally what happens is there's a reaction, and the First Amendment auditors are a reaction to that, just as the Second Amendment activists are a reaction to how gun owners and gun rights are being treated in different places. I didn't open carry I didn't want to necessarily open carry all the time until my arrest, until the cops gave me a reason to want to be out there and force them to accept reality. So I understand the existence of that. And I will never tell them to stop, and I will never tell them that they shouldn't be doing what they're doing, and I'm never going to criticize them for what they're doing. I would do things differently, but it's just me. Because I think some of it is, I think that you should go through life and you should just be nice. And a lot of the people involved in government are really just there for a job, and they don't really affect your life in any way. The people that affect your life are cops, they are politicians, and judges, and people like that. The people that don't affect your life are secretaries, treasurers, the people that work in the background to allow the tyrannical system to run, okay? But really, they're just doing a job, and they're not. So even though they're the ones collecting the fines and the fees and the things that are a result of bad police officers and bad laws and bad politicians, these people aren't affecting your life. Okay, they're just doing their job. And so I would not be going around recording just, you know, Sally and Joe who are sitting behind the glass counter at the open records. Well, unless I'm getting an open records request. Obviously, anytime I interact with government in any capacity, I'm going to film them. But I wouldn't just go to film those people, the support workers. I think that's a bit more just uncivil, and I don't even, I'm using a weird word. It's just not the kind of civility that I would do, because it's not those people's fault. It would be nice if they didn't have a job because government officials like cops and politicians didn't pass laws or enforce laws that required them to be there to accept your fees or to file your requests and things like that. And so but I think that, so that all said, that I would not do it that way. I would film cops, no problem. I would film government officials if I'm doing something that has to involve me interacting with government officials. But I also recognize that the reason that they do this, that they go to these buildings and they film and all that, is because really what they want, it's the same reason why I open carry and do these events, is, you know, if government officials would just simply do nothing, I guarantee you the First Amendment and the Second Amendment auditors and activists would just go away. The problem is that they don't. And instead of just leaving people alone, the auditors and the activists, instead of just leaving them alone, they end up harassing them. And what does that do? Well, that just gives them a reason to come back. And I think it's a good reason to come back. And so what they're trying to do, what we're trying to do, is we're trying to get them to just do the right thing so that there's no need for us. It would be nice if there was no need for a First Amendment activist. It would be nice if there's no need for a Second Amendment activist. But what I would tell all activists, every one of you and me, is just remember that there are people behind those counters, and treat them as people. Try to treat them as people. And, you know, just respect other people's privacy for the most part. I know they're in public, CJ, and anything I can see from the pulpit, that's not what I'm talking about. But a lot of people, there's no reason for, they don't have any business being on YouTube, unless, of course, they're violating your rights. But it's a very complex issue. It's a very complex issue. I'm a very complex person about that. I would just respect people's privacy, even in their workplaces. If they're like support personnel, and I would do things a little bit differently that way. But I love the First Amendment auditors. I think what they're doing is fine if they want to go and curse people out and do all that. But what I'll tell you is, whatever anybody does, if you're an activist, and I learned this the hard way, it's a lesson I had to learn because I'm guilty of this as well. But what I have learned is that if you're going to do this kind of stuff and you're going to end up interacting with law, then first of all, you need to know the law, all the limits of the law, exactly what you can and can't do, and make sure you're staying on this side of it. And second, that you appear as the sympathetic defendant in case you do get arrested. Because I've said this many times before, you can be the most right person in any given situation, doing nothing wrong whatsoever, but if you're acting like a dick, the jury's going to look at that video and they're going to have sympathy for the government worker, not you. So everything you do, make sure that you do in a sympathetic way, that when it does go to a jury, you're the one they like, and not, oh crap, I was wondering why there wasn't any comments. For some reason my comments got hidden. There you go. There's my... But I will never tell anybody to stop doing what they're doing, because the First Amendment auditors and activists are necessary because government thinks that they can just restrict things. And until they just leave everybody alone and just let them do their thing and stop with this stupid, ignorant, terrorism and all that kind of stuff. I mean, just stop. Just stop. All right. That is okay, I missed Rising Sun. Here, I have a question. Is the First Amendment as important as the Second? Yes, all of them are important. The First Amendment's important. The Second Amendment's important. Liberty is important. That the Bill of Rights is incredibly important, and neither are just as strong as the other. I will say that what good is the Second Amendment if you don't have the First Amendment to be able to express those rights? And what good is the First Amendment if you don't have the Second Amendment to back up those rights? And unfortunately, I think we're getting to a point where we're going to have to use the Second Amendment in order to protect the First. And I just hope that day never comes. But I think they're co-equal, and they're also very they're intertwined. Because as a Second Amendment activist, if I'm out there expressing myself and expressing my Second Amendment rights, I rely on the First Amendment to be able to do that in the first place. Those First Amendment protections. Yeah, Digger, there are actually some, he says Bar Association in conjunction with Maritime Admiralty Law needs to be disbanded. Maritime Admiralty Law is actually very disjointed from the current legal system. But the bar issue, I think, is a problem. The legal profession is a very self-regulating profession, and it's debatable whether or not they do a good job at that, and it's debatable about whether or not it's efficient, and it's also debatable about whether or not the rules make sense. But I'm learning a lot about the legal profession that it's so far that I've found probably one of the most closely regulated, and it's self-regulated. Unlike police officers, attorneys will throw you under the bus immediately, and you can lose your license for almost anything. So you can almost get kicked out of law school for anything too. Yeah. So I won't go into detail on that. You only want to hold those accountable that rob you with guns. I don't understand that question. So, Avalon, rephrase that question. I'm not sure. You only want to hold those accountable that rob you with guns? I don't know what that means. Not sure there. Let's see. When do we start attacking back? So, Brian, I hear that a lot because, especially the Second Amendment activists, we get a lot of criticism because we are out there exercising our gun rights. We're carrying guns. We're getting assaulted by cops. And why aren't we shooting back? It's a fair question. It's a very fair question. But I look back at our Declaration of Independence, and I try to put myself in the mindset of two types of people. The first is the Founding Fathers. And, it talks about a long string of abuses and the fact that man will suffer a lot before he or she has to do something. And no one should take war or civil war or violence easily or for granted. Okay, I am not pro-violence at all. I know it's weird to say from a combat veteran, but I'll tell you this: regardless of the fact that I was sent to a foreign country to fight in a war and had to use my firearm, I never shot at anyone that was not actively shooting at me, whether they had a right to or not. That debatable stuff, I'm not going to go into whether or not they were justified at shooting at me or not. I'm just saying that I have never shot at anybody that was not shooting at me first, and I do not want violence in any way whatsoever. I've taken the non-aggression pact. I will not engage in violence unless violence is engaged upon me, and it's going to be proportional as well. When you make a decision that you're going to fight the government, first of all, you better make sure it's the right decision and that it's worth your life for at the time. I don't think we're at the level in Olmos Park or anywhere else yet. Although, well, Olmos Park, I think we're pretty close, but I just don't think we're at a place where we just start shooting people just because we're getting falsely arrested, or we start shooting people just because they're throwing us on the ground, because these are isolated incidents. And if it was happening wholesale, like it was happening in 1773, and it was pervasive and it was bad everywhere, I would do that. The problem is we have a different society today where most of it's tolerated, and so it's really got to get bad before we start shooting. So I am not in favor of just shooting. Now, what I have done is, and I've made this very clear, there are several videos out there, and I think this is why cops are so violent with me, like right up front, and just get instantly violent with me, because they know they have to be quick. Because if they're slowly violent with me, or they give me any opportunity to fight back, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And so it's very hard to fight back or shoot back when you've got taser prongs in your back, and you've just had your head cracked open on the sidewalk. But if you notice, right before that happened in Olmos Park, I wasn't going to let him arrest me. I'm telling you right now, I would have fought him tooth and nail. There would have been a fist fight and possibly a gunfight if I had not been tased. But I was not going to be falsely arrested, and I will never be falsely arrested anymore. I will fight back. But I'm not looking for a violent fight. So that's very important. We can't be flippant about using violence. We have to make sure that we use violence and that it's completely justified. Because, you know, if we're going to take someone's life, we need to make sure that we're taking their life for the right reason. And that reason is that your life is being threatened. So by you just being arrested, is your life really being threatened? Is that when you start shooting back? No, that's not. I've got a 3-pronged strategy for when I think the revolution is necessary. I've talked about this before, and that is a failure of 3 systems: the police, the judicial system, and the legislative system. Once all 3 of those fail us, and again, there's debatable, I don't think we're at that point yet. Once all 3 of those fail us, that's when we need revolution, because if the police fail us, we need the courts to fix that and remedy that. If the courts don't remedy that, then we need the legislative branch to fix that through the legal process, through writing the laws. If all 3 of those are not doing that to protect American people, then that's when it's time to rise up again in 1776, this bitch. All right. My true thoughts on Dan Patrick's recent post. I think Dan Patrick is a statist thug. Anybody that knows me, you know that I'm not an F the police kind of guy. I'm very suspicious of the police. I don't like the police, but I will treat them individually with respect based on their treatment of me with respect. However, when we've got the most powerful person in Texas government saying that they're going to step on someone's freedom of speech because they don't like cops, because they're critical of government officials, which is what a cop is. I'm sorry, Dan Patrick got to go. He is 100% wrong on this. And while I don't generally, recommend or necessarily approve of, although it's none of my business, people can wear whatever they want. People walking around with F the police shirts. Again, it just goes back to my civility argument, about trying to be civil with each other. I totally support freaking everyone going to the Capitol wearing F the police shirts for no other reason than to make a point that this is our First Amendment right to do that. I think the courts have already ruled on that issue. Can you post... Oh, never mind. That was for Proud. All right, let's see what else we got here. Yeah, and KW, that's kind of what I was talking about when I was talking about First Amendment. If you're going to stay on the sidewalk, fine, stay on the sidewalk. I don't care if you're filming postal workers, if you're filming treasurers, if you're filming waterworks people. When I start sort of having a little... Again, I support any of it. As long as it's legal, I support it. But then again, if they tried to outlaw it, I wouldn't support it, even if it would be illegal in that case. But I guess I draw the line at kind of walking in and filming people in their workspaces, like in their office buildings and all that kind of thing, is where I just would not do that. And I mean, if my opinion mattered, I would recommend that they don't do that, because that's where most people tend to kind of lose support, is when you're kind of sticking cameras in people's cubicles and stuff like that. But filming the post office, I mean, you should film all government agencies. What can be done as far as suing when they have sovereign immunity? I completely agree, Sean. The qualified immunity is the most bastardized thing, but there's a way to overcome sovereign or qualified immunity, and that is through notice, okay? If you're going to engage in some kind of activism, you have to be intelligent enough to actually not just say you can't do that, or your policy says this, or you've got to somehow commit to memory the law, or take it with you. And the way that you overcome qualified immunity is that you provide notice to that government official that literally what they are doing is illegal and unconstitutional. Because like there was a video I was watching where one of the people were talking about the case law, and the cop was saying, don't quote me case law, you're gonna quote me case law and all that kind of stuff. Well, case law is notice to the police, okay? And the courts have said that law enforcement can err. You and I can't. I mean, ignorance of the law for you and I is no excuse, but for a cop, ignorance of the law is an excuse, as long as there's like a reasonable mistake that they've made, I think is the wording that the court used. So what you've got to do is you've got to get rid of that standard that overcomes qualified immunity, which is effective notice and reasonable mistake. This is why I made that phone call to Olmos Park the day before I went out there, because I put the officers on notice that what we were doing was going to be legal. On the street, I had the law with me. I put them on notice that what they were doing was illegal. So you can't get qualified immunity when you've literally given them the statute and you're able to quote the statute of what they're doing being illegal. And if you can quote the case law that specifically told the police, because, you've got Terry v. Ohio. Terry v. Ohio doesn't just say a cop can just come up to you and search you for weapons if they're just saying hi to you. They can't do that. Terry v. Ohio says that if you're being detained under suspicion of a crime, they can pat you, they can do a cursory surface search for weapons if they believe you're armed and dangerous. That doesn't mean they can just walk up to you because they got a phone call of a non-criminal act or suspicious person and Terry stop you. So the court has already told the police about what is the basis for doing a search. If you're not suspected of a crime, they cannot search you. That's effective notice. And cops can't use ignorance of, the courts is where the cases, that's where you argue case law. No. Case law has already been argued before the courts. And the cops on different issues have been given notice about that. And so that's how you overcome sovereign immunity. You just got to be able to quote the law, make sure you're not breaking the law in any way whatsoever, and that's how you destroy qualified immunity. The problem is too many people are engaged in activism that have no idea what the flip they're doing. They're just out there trying to make YouTube videos. They're not really trying to make any change. They're not doing it for a real purpose. Thankfully, most of the people that I hang out with, they're doing it for the right reasons. They're doing it the right way because they want to make change. And so when they do get arrested, they know for a fact that they're going to win. They're going to be successful. And there's got to be, what is the change you're trying to bring about, right? That should be what that's about. And this is all bloviation by CJ, okay? This is just my opinion. I don't care how people do what they do. All right, let's see. Man. All right. I don't know how far behind I am on comments. Let me see here. I'm just going to go backwards here. A remonstrance is how one would remove qualified immunity. Yes, that's true. Top Cat. So James Barnes says detained without probable cause is false imprisonment. You actually don't need probable cause to be detained. You only need reasonable suspicion. False imprisonment is a well-defined common law term, and it's also it's one that has been laid out there. So if you are confined against your will to a bounded area and there's no means of escape by someone without the authority to do so, that's false imprisonment. And so you've got to get over that authority part with cops, okay? And that's the tricky thing, because the courts have also said that, like I said, cops just they can, if it's a reasonable error, okay, they're going to be able to falsely detain you. But that's why it's so important that when you're being detained, that you get them on film, asking them specifically, what law or crime am I being detained for? Do you suspect me? There doesn't have to be reasonable, or there doesn't have to be probable cause. There only has to be reasonable suspicion for detainment. There needs to be probable cause for an arrest, but only reasonable suspicion for a detainment. And you just got to overcome that. It's pretty, and it's actually not that hard. Cops ignore how a Terry stop works and do what they want. You're so right. All right, why are so many laws that change from state to state instead of having one for the whole nation? Humberto Roche Garcia. So why are so many laws that change from state to state instead of having one for the whole nation? Because that would destroy federalism. And I prefer it that way. If I don't like the laws in one state, I'm just going to stay in my state. And there's a reason I don't go to California. There's a reason I don't go to New York or New Jersey. There's a reason I only travel to certain states, because I do not want to subject myself to their laws. Can you imagine if there was a federal government that created laws like they do, that created all laws for the entire country? We'd be like California. So it's federalism, and our Constitution is why we have different state-to-state laws. If you travel a lot, then it's your responsibility to know those laws. If you don't want to have to worry about that, just don't travel. Stay in your state. It's my philosophy. Well, codes and policy are laws. By law. Now, policy is not law. Policy is not law, but codes are law. That's local. Codes are local government laws. Laws are defined as statutes, regulations, and codes. That's what they are. You don't have to agree with that, but that's what it is. If a democratic, and I mean that in a political sense, not whatever, not in a, I mean that in a political science sense, not a political sense. If a democratic institution that's duly elected by the people creates a law, a code, an ordinance, a statute, then that's the law that you have to follow. Now, what that law has to do, of course, is conform with the higher law. So a local ordinance must comply with state law, which complies with federal law, which is the Constitution. Federal law must comply with the Constitution, which is the highest law. Policies, on the other hand, are... I haven't gotten into administrative law yet. But I do know that policies are generally, I mean, it's like these executive orders that the president puts out. Any president. Executive orders are great. They sound wonderful, but they only apply to the executive branch. They don't apply to you and me. We cannot be forced to do something by executive order. So it's the same thing as a policy. A policy is like an executive order for an administrative organization within a government that doesn't have lawmaking authority, and lawmaking authority comes from each state's constitution. Yes, 10th Amendment. There you go, 10th Amendment as well. Olmos Park can't read. They don't know the true law. No. Mark Bench says Olmos Park can't read. They don't know the true law. Keep up the good work. No, I think they do know the true law. They just don't care. And I think they think they're untouchable, which is why we're suing them. Oh, shoot. Looks like my battery's about to die. Plug that in real quick. All right. Sean says, in Texas, you're under custodial arrest at contact. That's not true. There's 3 types of contact by law enforcement. They are, from worst to best, is arrest, detention, and consensual. Those are the 3 types. Consensual is you're free to go at any time. Detention is you're being temporarily stopped because of suspicion of criminal activity. And arrest is you're going to jail, or you could go to jail because there's probable cause you committed a crime. All right. You're right. I'm not always right. I'm definitely not always right there, PNP. All right. Can you explain qualified immunity? Yes, I can explain qualified immunity. So essentially what qualified immunity is, if you break it down, this, and it's not just for cops, it's for anyone in government. So the government has immunity if the government is doing its job, it's doing what it's legally got the authority to do, or reasonably believes they have the authority to do something, and in the course of that, it interacts or interferes with someone else's rights or person. So, in other words, a police officer is allowed to stop you for speeding. They have immunity from, they have immunity from stopping your movement if you are creating an infraction against the traffic code, for example. And so you can't sue a cop for false imprisonment, for example, for pulling you over to write you a ticket, because that's his job, right? The problem is that all too often cops will do it anyway, and it's not their job, but based on the circumstances, the courts will somehow twist it into, and generally a lot of times the cops just need to sit down and say, well, I thought that he was breaking the law, and I just thought he was a terrorist, and I wanted to see if he was a terrorist because he was out there taking pictures of my building, and so they've sort of brought in this idea of immunity. But if the police officer or the government entity can articulate that what they were doing at the time your right was violated, or the time that they interacted with you, they had a reasonable belief that they were just doing their job, and that the law gave them the authority to do that, that is where qualified immunity comes from. It's actually, I understand it. It's got its uses, and it should be there, because, like I said, a cop should not be, and I'm not going to argue whether or not I agree with the law or not, a cop should not be sued for false imprisonment when he pulls you over because you've got a busted taillight. Because there's a code out there that says there's a busted taillight, and there's a cop out there that says, I have nothing better to do with my life than write someone a ticket who's got a busted taillight, because that person probably can't afford to fix his taillight, which is why it's busted in the first place. So I'm going to write him a ticket so he really can't afford to fix his taillight. Regardless, he's doing his job. I'm just giving you whether I agree with it or not, I'm just giving you sort of what the legal, and I'm not giving legal advice here, but what the legal justification for that is. Why is there such a disconnect with cops on 3802? Very good question, because cops are idiots and they don't bother to learn what the law says. Hell, I've even seen videos from like News Now Houston where the cop comes out there and he literally reads 3802 and still thinks that you're required to identify if you're not under arrest. Look, I know some great cops. I have a lot of friends who are cops. But they're not the smartest overall. They don't hire Yale and Harvard graduates of criminal justice, okay? They're hiring people who probably only made it through high school because they were on the football team, all right? So that's part of the problem. Wait, I didn't see. All right, James, look, man, if you're just gonna be an ass and you're gonna accuse me of stuff, I'm not reading every comment because at times I'm talking, okay? So if you've got something you want me to see, you're either gonna have to post it again, or it might get skipped over. Damn, don't be such a dick. I didn't skip over it on purpose. I'm looking for stuff. There's a lot of comments scrolling. Damn. You know what? I'm not even going to go back up there and look for it. If you want me to see whatever you posted, then post it again. What was the question? That was a question. What was a question? I just posted a definition from Black's Law Dictionary. You skipped right over it. Why? That's the question? Why? Because I didn't see it. There you go. There's your answer. All right. We have all misinformed by the bar. A remonstrance is a lawful solution and no one understands the process. Well, Top Cat, I have not learned what a remonstrance is, and I haven't looked into that, so I can't answer that question because I just don't know. What do you think of A.G. Barr's speech at the Fraternal Order of Police Convention about resisting the police? I have not seen that. I don't know. What I do know is that Texas law has what I believe is an unconstitutional law that says that it is not a defense to resist an unlawful arrest in Texas. So in Texas, and this is part of our problem, and this is why I think I did a video on this before, why people need to contact their representatives and we need to get that removed. We are the only state in the Fifth Circuit that has a law that says you cannot resist an unlawful arrest. Literally every other state in the Fifth Circuit has a law that says you can use reasonable force to resist an unlawful arrest, except Texas. And I think that's unconstitutional, but we need to challenge that. Yeah. All right, the second definition is arrest, and the definition of arrest has detain in it also. I'm telling you what Black's Law is not Texas law. The Black's Law Dictionary is not law. Okay, the Black's Law Dictionary is simply a compendium of terms and common law terms, okay? So, because I've got Black's Law Dictionary, but Black's Law Dictionary is not the law. The law is what is written down in the statute and what has been adjudicated by the courts through jurisprudence. That's what the law is. Just like the restatements, they're not law. The Model Penal Code is not law. The Black's Law Dictionary is not law, but those things essentially define terms so that if a state has a conflict or there's an issue where something has not been defined, Black's Law Dictionary can be used as convincing proof of the definition of something. But in Texas, there are three types of custodial stops. There is the arrest, which requires probable cause. There's the detainment, which requires reasonable suspicion. And there is just a consensual stop. So if you're looking at Black's Law and you're thinking, well, the Black's Law says an arrest is a detention, well, that might be the case. But states have already, and the courts have already determined what's the difference between a detention and an arrest, okay? Kirk's Law Corner has the proven solution fact. Okay. Is the chief in Leon Valley, will he be charged? I think the Leon Valley folks are suing under, they need to be sued under RICO. When we hire officers for the borough, training is part, but temperament is one thing we looked at the most. Good, because that's more important. Yes. Some case law there. The object of a license is to tender a right or power which does not exist without it. Don't feel bad. I skipped over all my comments, and my comments were super awesome. Sorry about that, buyer of sorts. If I get behind or something, that is definition of law from case law. You said Black's Law Dictionary. I'm telling you, Black's Law Dictionary is not the law, and case law for Texas comes from either the Fifth Circuit or the Supreme Court or the Texas courts. Why do cops ask sometimes if you're a sovereign person? Because cops ask if you're a sovereign person because what the police have done is anybody that stands up for their rights, these unions have been educating their cops and training them to believe that anyone that questions them is a quote-unquote sovereign citizen. And the sovereign citizens is a movement of a few people who believe that government has no control over them, that they don't subscribe to the theory that there's any type of entity that has authority over them, okay, other than their own body and stuff. And so what the cops have done, and there's such a broad range of what a sovereign citizen is, what the cops have done is basically made anybody that questions, because sovereign citizens do question cops, a lot of times with nonsense, but a lot of times they're right. And so they just, you know what I do? Whenever I'm asked if I'm a sovereign citizen by a cop, I always say, oh, no, I'm not a cop. No. That's how I answer that question. Yeah, domestic violence, end it. Absolutely. Anyone that beats their spouse needs to get their ass kicked, especially if beating a woman. What is the law? A man-made law, nothing more, nothing less than opinions of crooked politicians backed by criminals in uniforms, aka cops. Not always. Not always. Some laws are there for a reason. Some are actually just control. They're just there for control. I think I answered Umberto, didn't I? I hope so. Can I explain common law? So, under common law, common law is not what people think. Common law is the system of accepted law within society over time, generally as dictated by the courts. The United States got its common law from English law. And from English law, these are laws that were passed down from kings and things like that. We actually still retain, as a matter of fact, in my property and contracts classes, we still study, 2020 now, we're still studying cases from the 17th and 18th century about contracts and how contracts are formed. And these are from king's courts. And because what happened was the American system of law came from the British system of law, and that system of law was brought about through court precedents. Now, obviously, it was like king's courts and stuff, but when the king made a decision, that decision was what's called stare decisis. So once it's been decided once the king decided something, that's the way it was decided from now on. So any further conflicts that had to do with that subject was already solved through the common law, because the common law said this is what property is, or this is what a contract is, this is what constitutes rape, this is what constitutes burglary, those kinds of things, or larceny. And so common law is just the system of precedent that the courts have used over the years. Now, sometimes the common law absolutely changes as technology changes or as society changes. So if there's not a case about it, or if there's not an issue that's been brought up, the common law is that you're free to do just about anything you want until government tells you not to. And that's why it's important that people vote. So if you're not voting and you're not out there voting, even though sometimes it might feel like a futile process, and I don't even really care so much about the federal government anymore. I just really pay attention to states, because that's where you can make the biggest difference. But if you're not out there voting, and you don't think that voting's important, but yet you care about common law and you care about rights, then that's why you've got to vote. And you've just, unfortunately, a lot of times, you've got to vote for the crappiest of crappy people, or the least crappy of crappy people. And you know, if you're going to get someone anyway, you might as well vote for at least the one that's closer to our constitutional freedoms, instead of just doing nothing and then letting stupid people who do vote because they want the power of government to control your lives. So when people who believe in freedom don't vote, they allow people who believe in slavery to vote. Slavery by government. Do we live on a flat earth? No. 357 Sig says Black's Law is basically a dinosaur thesaurus. It's actually, it gets updated often as things change. Black's Law does keep up with things, but it's a good resource, but it's a secondary source. It's not a primary source that dictates much. All right. James Springer, a.k.a. Freeman, is a... Yeah, no, Freeman's a... He's a good guy, though. But he's not a sovereign citizen in the sense that he's just going to go around shooting people because there are some sovereign citizens that do that. Yes. Let's see. Net Monster, you're an inspiration. Thanks for all you do. I'm just hard-headed, and I'm nothing special. I really don't understand why anybody follows this channel or follows me, because I just like to bloviate. All right, I might skip over someone's question again because I'm just kind of going through all these comments. And look, I'm only a first-year law student, so if you're asking me like super legal questions, now I've been fighting my own traffic tickets and stuff since I was 18, so I understand process, I understand how to read laws and interpret laws, but I'm learning about concepts and procedures right now, which is, I think, for me, the benefit of law school. I don't need to learn the law. I already know how to do that. I already know how to read case law. I know how to apply case law. I know how to write a brief, but it's procedure and common law type stuff that I'm learning the most out of, so I can be more effective, hopefully. Ector County Family Court, Texas is a subject to look into. That's pretty specific. I don't know much about Ector County. Why is it you think voting is your only option? I suggest having a look at Larkin Rose's video, the tiny... Dang it. Why do I think that voting is your only option? Because we live in a constitutional republic. What other options do you have under our Constitution besides voting? I don't get it. That's... it's really hard... It's really hard to take some people seriously. I'm not saying the person that made that comment. When you sit there and you invoke the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the 10th Amendment, the Ninth Amendment, you're invoking these constitutional amendments to justify or even protect you, but yet then you say that, I understand why anybody thinks that we have to vote, that's the only way to do things. Well, that's what the Constitution says. The very same Constitution that we're relying on in exercising our rights. So you can't, invoke a Constitution while also saying the Constitution doesn't apply. It's just you either support or you don't. This is why I believe in the Constitution. I don't like, for example, eminent domain. I don't like it. But you know what? Whether I like it or not, it's constitutional in a very restricted way. So obviously I don't like eminent domain outside of constitutional bounds. But I also recognize that eminent domain is a constitutional issue. And if we don't like it collectively as a society, then collectively as a society, we need to vote so that we can get people in office that will support an amendment to get rid of eminent domain in the Constitution. It's the way it is. It's our form of government. And you know what? If you don't like your form of government, then you vote for people to get into government to change the Constitution to the form of government that you think we should have. Now, if you don't believe in government at all, there's nothing I can help you with. There's never been, in the history of the world, at least of the modern world that's written, that we are aware of, where government has not existed. It just doesn't happen. I mean, there's different levels of government. Government is everywhere. Even I can't remember who it was, but what was his name? I've already forgotten his name. I used to call him the K word, but anyway, they went off and founded like Freedom Farms or something like that, or the Freedom Place. And it was supposedly this place for sovereign citizens to go, and they bought all this land. And they bought all this land so that people could go and just live their lives and be free and not have to worry about government or anything. And guess what happened? They ended up forming rules at this place. That's government. So even in a place where they went to get away from government to live off the grid, where they didn't have to, follow those laws on this particular property, that was a really big property, guess what they did? They created rules. That's government. Well, you can't refuse the privilege to govern you. Everybody's going to be governed because I can't argue with that. But I mean, look, we either live in a constitutional republic or we don't. Okay, if you don't want to be governed, sorry, but society as a whole has said that that's what is accepted. Now, what we need to do is make sure that we're only governed on things that we should be governed on, which is the sole purpose of government, in my mind, and there is a purpose for government, and I support this purpose for government, is to protect liberty and the rights of others. You should be able to do whatever you want as long as you don't affect the rights of others to do whatever they want. And then you need a government to enact punishments or justice when that doesn't happen. So even in a completely free society, let's just assume there is no government, but now you're being trespassed. Your person is being trespassed because we have a government with no laws. Or even, let's say there is no government, but we have an accepted group of rules. Well, what happens when those rules are violated? There's got to be a punishment, or there's got to be some sort of remedy, right? Well, who does that? Well, guess what the people do? The people say, okay, well, I want this person to be my judge between this dispute. Well, guess what? That judge is now the government. So I'm sorry, I'm not a sovereign citizen. I'm not an anarchist, but I also believe in an extremely limited government. But I think government is necessary. You'll never, ever, ever convince me there's no such thing as government and that any society can survive without some form of government. I just think that government needs to be extremely small and limited. All right. I think, what about voluntary interactions instead of forced interactions? Isn't government their monopoly on the initiation of force? Well, government doesn't have a monopoly, but the government does have a monopoly on the initiation of legitimate force that is necessary to enforce the laws. I don't think anyone, even government, has the authority to initiate force on anybody except in self-defense. And generally, when government is supposed to initiate force, it should be in self-defense of liberty. And so that's an interesting thing. All right, I'm gonna get ready to go. I hope I was able to answer some questions. I was kind of weary about this because I thought I was going to answer other like questions like what's your favorite. Well, I did like the taco and tamales question. I thought I was going to get more of that, like, hey, where'd you grow up and all that kind of stuff. But I've got to go though because I really got to take a leak, and this video is already an hour long. So, but let me tell you, even though I don't, I mean, look, anarchists, they have a right to try, and they have a right to speak and try and push their case. But the simple fact is we don't live in an anarchist society, and I don't personally believe in anarchy, but I think that people that do, okay, more power to you. I love James Freeman. That's my brother, man. That guy does it the right way, and I really like him. So even though we disagree on that, and we go to the same church, but we're both kind of and we're both sort of kindred spirits, but we disagree on politics, I think. On things. So I'm sure to his standards I might be a statist in some ways, but he loves me and I love him, and anyone that believes in freedom, even if that belief in freedom means there's no government, well, heck, it's because you believe in freedom. I support you. All right, guys, I gotta go. It's freaking cold. I don't have my car on, so I didn't want to waste my gas for an hour just sitting here. But I don't have a signal back in my apartment to do one of these. So y'all take care, be safe, be free, and you can always email me. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't. You can email me, cj@cjgrisham.com. Maybe there's something you want me to cover in a future video. I don't have a lot of time to do these. I can only do this one because it's spring break, and I took 2 days off. But come Monday, I will, even though I'm on spring break, I will be trying to get ahead in my studies and stuff like that. And I'm also writing briefs on different things and trying to change some of the Texas laws. And so I keep a lot of notes, and I keep folders on case law as I issue things. No, you're not banned there, Hambone. I see you. But yeah, anyway, take care, be safe, be free. I'm going to stop talking here.